Well, what is going on, FA Nation? John Impemba here with James Grande, bringing you the Fantasy Alarm NBA DFS live stream here on New Year's Eve, James. No sleep for us, not out celebrating just yet because we have a 5-game NBA DFS slate on DraftKings, 4 games on FanDuel. They're cutting off that 6:30 Magic game that you and I want so much exposure to, but have no opportunity to play over on FanDuel. But other than that, it's actually a pretty solid one. Some nice players on this slate, some decent price points, and one that I think we have a pretty good handle on.
Yeah, one we do have a pretty good handle on. And just a quick note, if you are going out to party, make sure you bring a mask, John, because there is something called coronavirus out there in the world right
Not
now.
leaving my house.
Not leaving my house as well, which means just more NBA coverage for you guys coming in. So yeah, I mean, fun little 5-gamer. I prefer it on DraftKings. I'm going to be honest. I don't like the 4-gamer on FanDuel because it's tough sledding to look for value, John. We're mining for there is bad value, there's good value. We are mining for bad value, hoping that it hits on FanDuel tonight.
Right.
Whereas we have the value on the Magic side on DraftKings. So don't love the FanDuel side, but hey, that's what we're here for, to mine through that bad value and give you the bad value that's going to hit for tonight.
Sure. Let's take a look at the point guard position here. Some of the top plays that I think you and I are both on, and that is De'Aaron Fox. They're up, Sacramento, Houston. One of the highest game totals on the entire slate. Fox has been fantastic so far this season. And if you look at our draft percentages, again, part of the Playbook Pro package here, we do have our draft percentage forecaster. We're looking at De'Aaron Fox as, one of the highest overall owned players of the slate tonight. Again, really good spot. And I don't really know what we're going to get out of Houston. They're getting John Wall back, Jamarcus Cousins, Eric Gordon. It's not going to be just a Harden show per se. So it could be a really good game here between two solid teams.
Yeah, I mean, it's the clear-cut number one game on the board, the game that everyone wants exposure to on this slate, and it's the most ownership going towards this game. And De'Aaron Fox is playing every bit the part of the max contract player he became this offseason. Right. He's gone for 40 fantasy points in 3 of 4. And the one game he was in foul trouble, and it was just a nightmare overall, but bounced back the next game of 47. I think there's 50-point upside with the Rockets just trying to figure out what the heck to do with their rotations. And we know John Wall is a subpar defender coming off a major injury. That's not going to improve at all. So I think De'Aaron Fox is going to be taking advantage of Wall early and often here. And I wouldn't be shocked if we got a 50-burger out of Fox on this slate.
That's a big ask. It is a lot of points, but he's come close already a handful of times this season. Just had 47 fantasy points the other night against Denver, and he's gone for 40+ in 3 of the 4 games this year. So Fox really on a roll. I think a pivot for most, and one that I know Sean Mitchell brought up today, on Twitter when we were, discussing back and forth the slate. He likes Kyle Lowry here against the Knicks, and I kind of agree. Elfrid Payton, not a good defender. The Knicks are big favorites, despite the fact that they're 0-4. And the Knicks had actually won 2 straight. So, Vegas thinks this is a blowout, but I think it could be maybe a little bit closer than we're thinking. And, Lowry really does everything that you ask of him. He gives you assists, rebounds, points, he gets steals. If you're looking for a pivot off of Fox tonight where maybe a little bit less ownership, Lowry, to me, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think he's fine. I don't know if he presents the upside that Fox does. I know he has given us some pretty good games already this year. Like, he actually has gone for 49. But for me, Lowry profiles at this price more of a cash game play. Yeah. I think there's more like ancillary pieces in Toronto that could go off than there are in Sacramento. So I like the upside for Fox for tournaments and Lowry for cash games.
Sure. If we go to this Orlando-Philadelphia game, again, this is for those playing on DraftKings. There is no Terrence Ross tonight. Ross is a huge usage player. One of our favorite plays of the early season. He's basically in all the lineups that we were building. He wasn't missing, but is not playing tonight. Markelle Fultz, a really nice mid-6K price tag, going up against Philadelphia, the team that drafted him. Basically, had people calling him a bust because of everything that went on. They traded him to Orlando, and he's really becoming in his own here. You got to think there's got to be some increased usage now for Fultz when Ross is off the floor. And if you're looking at that mid 6K price, Fultz is, I think, a really strong play.
Yeah, and he actually already is the leading usage player on the Magic, so that is only going to rise with Terrence Ross off the floor, averaging over 1.1 fantasy points per minute as well this year. And obviously, there's added motivation here, considering what a disaster his time with Philly was. So, Markelle Fultz, I think flies under the radar here, John. I do, and I get like his ownership isn't indicative of that, but I think at the end of the day, a lot of people now, with the fact that there is a lot of Magic value on the board with Terrence Ross out, maybe pivot off of Fultz, and we can get a monster game for someone like 20% owned on a 5-game slate. Another guy I think has like 40, 45 point upside here at this price, and I'm loading up on Markelle Fultz in tournaments here.
Yeah, I mean, he's scoring a lot of points, and now if you can just have him chip in a little bit more in other categories, the upside.
Well, 10 assists last game.
That's what I'm saying. You get him to start chipping in more, and the upside is definitely there. One of the better values on this slate, more so FanDuel, I guess, than DraftKings, is Elfrid Payton. The one thing that we've liked about Payton recently is the minutes. Over 30 minutes in back-to-back games now for Payton. Only $5,200 over on FanDuel. He's $5,900 on DraftKings, where you do at least get the bonus points for double-doubles, triple-doubles. Not a great matchup, right? Kyle Lowry, good defender. And again, we're talking about a blowout, or not blowout, but Vegas thinks almost 10 points here. Where do you land on Payton?
So generally, Lowry has been a good defender. This year, Toronto ranks 23rd in DVP against point guards. For what that's worth, people look at DVP in different lights. I do use that as a tiebreaker sometimes. So 23rd against the point guard position is pretty good. I mean, Elfrid Payton. Whatever. He profiles as a GPP play always, and there's not a situation where you really ever use him in cash. I wouldn't use him in cash if he went for 30 fantasy points in 10 straight games. I wouldn't, because we know the dud's going to come eventually. So yeah, he profiles fine for tournaments, and I think he's someone that you can leverage on DraftKings as well, because all the ownership's going to his way on FanDuel. Not a lot at 5.9K on DraftKings. I think everyone else is wanting to play the Randalls, the Barretts, the Robinsons of the Knicks world, but I think Payton on DraftKings is a nice leverage play off some of the higher price point guards.
Yeah, I'm agree with you. And if we're going to go down to value, I know this is probably more for my play than anybody else, but I was touting Cole Anthony a few slates ago. Unfortunately, had in terms of like minutes, he played his fewest minutes all season. He only played 16. Shot his worst of the year, 1 for 5, but he still gave us almost 20 fantasy points in those 16 minutes. And every game this season, he scored more fantasy points than minutes played. And I put in the Fast Break article today, and I tweeted out the snippet that Anthony has played all but 7 minutes this year with Terrence Ross on the floor. Ross at that time leads the team in usage with 32%. And Anthony himself is at 22% usage. So if Ross is off the court now, maybe some of that usage we know is going to be spread out could go Cole Anthony's way, where he's already being a productive player. So once again, I'm going to go back into the well here with Cole Anthony. I think there's some potential upside for him. Only $4,200 on this DraftKings slate, and someone that I know that you were kind of high on when the Magic drafted him. You live in that Orlando area. You were sort of following him. I think there's a chance to spend down on Anthony tonight.
I mean, yeah, and they drafted him because he can score. He's a volume scorer. He's not going to be efficient really ever. But what does Terrence Ross do, John? He scores, and they need to fill that void with Ross. So I do think Cole Anthony is viable, and I do think this is probably the first time we see him play north of 20 minutes. I guess I'm interested, though, because I have touted Michael Carter-Williams today. On the flip side, on the same team, I think more usage goes Anthony's way because he's a better scorer. But I'm interested to see how the minutes are distributed, because Ross is averaging 28 minutes a game, and we've seen Carter-Williams close the last 2 games for the Magic, and he's played 23 and 24 minutes respectively in those games. I wonder how those minutes get distributed. I suspect we see like Carter-Williams in the high 20s, maybe like 27, 28, and we see Cole Anthony kind of in that Carter-Williams 23, 24 minute role. And so therefore, I think both of them are viable. But
Do you think Dwayne Bacon gets any extra love? He hasn't starting
yeah,
anyways, you know.
I do. I do think he gets a little extra run. I mean, we saw it anyways. Last game he played 23 minutes, but it's not like an exciting 23 minutes. You're getting more peripheral stats from the other guys like Cole Anthony and Michael Carter Williams.
I agree. Bacon for me is just a pure punt on
Yep.
DraftKings. I think he was like $3,400 or something like that. If you really needed the salary, at least he's starting, and he did have a good game last game. Prior to that, wasn't doing anything, so really need the shot to drop. Over at shooting guard, James Harden is the top only guy above 10K over on FanDuel. Him and Joel Embiid are the top two guys on DraftKings. How are you thinking Harden plays out tonight now that he's having Wall, Cousins, Gordon, like the whole cast of characters is back in Houston? Or do we still think it's James Harden, man? He's just going to run the show.
I think it's the latter. I think it's James Harden and he's going to run the show while the rest of the pieces kind of sort themselves out. I don't think that really impacts James Harden. We saw James Harden beat James Harden with Russell Westbrook, who's a much higher usage player than both Cousins and John Wall. So I also don't suspect DeMarcus Cousins plays a full complement of minutes. I don't suspect John Wall plays a full complement of minutes. So I'm really just treating James Harden normally, and it's a great spot too. It's one of the best spots on the board. The Kings are the second worst team in DVP against the shooting guard position. So I'm loading up on James Harden, and I hope the field doesn't, because getting James Harden at like sub 30% on a 5-game slate, 4-game slate if you're playing over on FanDuel is an absolute win for in any sense of the word. So I am loading up on James Harden with no fear due to all the guys coming back from the COVID protocol.
How are you sort of looking at the next tier below? We have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Donovan Mitchell, Devin Booker. Different price points. SGA is the highest price of the group. Mitchell and Booker are closer together. Do you have a favorite? Given the matchups, SGA is facing New Orleans, and then you have Booker and Mitchell going up against one another.
I think my lean would be Mitchell and Gilgeous-Alexander. I mean, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has a 30% usage rate and is the clear-cut number one option. He's getting all the shots. He's doing pretty much everything for this Thunder team. And Donovan Mitchell, we've talked about it extensively on multiple podcasts. The shots just need to fall. The peripherals have been there. The shot attempts have been there. He's taken 23 shots in 2 straight games. And he's still giving us 30-plus fantasy points, but the shots aren't falling. If the shots fall against Phoenix tonight, we're looking at a guy who, again, another guy with 50-point upside. And this is probably why a lot of people sit in this fair and balanced tonight, John, because there are a lot of these mid-tier plays that can go for 50. And I think Mitchell's one of those guys. I'm not paying them $8,600 for Devin Booker. There's no chance. We said it on the podcast last night. He's too expensive. 7,500 kind of feels expensive right now with the way he's playing on FanDuel. Yeah. So I'd rather take my shots there on FanDuel and play Mitchell and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on DraftKings.
Okay. Yeah, the one thing that I guess I have to at least take into account a little bit when it comes to Booker is that on FanDuel it is a 4-game slate. So
right.
Sometimes you're okay if he only goes for 35 because how many people on the slate sort of have that level of upside if you needed the money. So slate sizes do matter at times when it comes to production expectations. Definitely something worth noticing there.
You see so we have a lineup note, yeah, John.
We do have the Rockets lineup. It is John Wall, James Harden, Daniel House, PJ Tucker, and Christian Wood, which means Cousins and Gordon will be coming off the bench.
Love that for DeMarcus Cousins. I love that for DeMarcus Cousins. And I was planning to tweet it out that the only way I'd play DeMarcus Cousins today is if he was coming off the bench. Because he's going to soak up so much second unit usage.
His DraftKings price at $5,000 I think could make him one of the highest owned plays on the slate probably. People are worried about, it has been a while since he's seen the floor. But if you looked at what he did in 25 minutes a night playing for the Warriors with a team that had Steph and Clay and that whole group, it was pretty solid. It was almost 17 points, 7 rebounds. He had over a steal and a block per game. He was still very capable of being productive in limited minutes. And if that's what his role is now, it's off the bench to play 25 minutes. I think there's plenty of opportunity for him to be successful. I don't know what to do with Christian Wood. Again, this is the question about how this whole team is going to play and the rotations they're going to use. Wood can obviously play the power forward. Are they going to stick with Tucker at power forward for 42 minutes a night, or are they going to play Cousins and Wood together? That's something I definitely want to pay attention to. But I agree with you. I like that he's coming off the bench because it's going to allow potentially floor time without Harden. If him and Gordon come on and play sort of second unit together, I think there's a good upside for that.
Yeah, definitely only tournaments at 5K, and you probably are playing most of these guys. I think James Harden is the only Rocket you can play in cash, and the rest are just solely tournament plays, and you just kind of hope to guess them right.
Yeah, I agree with you there. James, what kind of value are you looking at shooting guard tonight?
Value at shooting guard. I mean, Lou Dort is solid. He has been pretty good. He's getting a lot of run, 31 minutes per game so far. I would go to Lou Dort. I guess Tyrese Halliburton, who is point guard, shooting guard. Is he a shooting guard on
He's a shooting guard on
FanDuel?
Yep.
Yeah, 4,900 on both sites. I mean, he has closed pretty much the last 3 games, with the exception of the second Phoenix game, because it was a blowout. He didn't play like the final 3 minutes. But I mean, this is a guy who's playing 27 minutes a game, averaging 10, 5, 2, and almost a steal per game. 4,900. We've talked about kind of the lack of value across the board. Mm-hmm. It's interesting to me how cheap the Kings are tonight when they're in the highest total. And I think that's something that we have to take advantage of, right. Knowing how, we don't know how Houston's going to respond. We don't know how Houston's going to look together. And they could look good offensively, but their pieces defensively other than PJ Tucker, are really bad. So I think Tyrese Halliburton has a great chance to break out tonight, even more than he's done. And, that's probably like the extent of the value at shooting guard, because I believe like Reggie Bullock is a small forward, or is he a shooting guard?
Well, so it's a good thing you brought up Reggie Bullock, because we did just get news that Alec Burks is officially ruled out for tonight. Bullock is $3,700 as a shooting guard, I believe.
3,600 as a shooting guard. Wow.
Yeah. So him and Emmanuel Quickly both ruled out for tonight for the Knicks. So Bullock, fantastic game the other night. Right. Production's really been up and down this year, but he played a lot of minutes. Probably again going to start tonight at shooting guard, and I'm not going to say go ahead and project him to do as well. But I think, there's potential upside. It's also worth noting that Austin Rivers is available tonight, making his debut. Expected to play limited minutes, but 15 minutes out of him at the shooting guard or point guard spot could cut into somebody, right?
Yeah. So what would you project Bullock's minutes to be? I mean, we're not going to, I guess we won't say 41, but if I were to set the over under at like 30.5, would you say over or would you go under there?
So I just want to know, again, I went in and updated our projections right now. I put them at 30. I think 30 is a fair number, for them. And, I think that's probably where he'll play. He could play obviously a little bit more, depending on how much they really want to play. Rivers, I guess, is the big question. Because, how many minutes did he play the other night? You said it was like 40?
41 minutes, yeah.
I might bump him up a little bit more. Maybe I'll give him 32. I think he could sit in that range. Because they don't have much else. It's a very limited roster right now for the Knicks. So, there's no Frankie Smokes. Quickly's out. Smith's out. Like, they're really limited in that guard position. So, that could be a way they go.
Rivers probably is is the backup point guard tonight. So I don't know if there's even going to be any really downtick in Bullock's minutes. I think we could see a path to like 35 minutes here for him.
Yeah. None of the Rockets will be on a minutes limit tonight, per the most recent update. So
then, DeMarcus Cousins at 5K is
right. And does John Wall then at 7K re-interest you? If there's no limit on, he seemingly is going to play 30 plus minutes. Is there?
Sure. Tournament. I would probably go tournaments only, but 7K is a. I just don't like how highly he's projected in terms of ownership. I don't love that.
Well, it's a high scoring game against De'Aaron Fox. That's a matchup that you like to take up. But again, to your point, like, Harden is Harden. Like what are
Right.
we gonna expect out of the group? So this is definitely an unknown situation. Hopefully, it plays out the way we're expecting. A lot of production, a lot of high scoring, and making that tough decision won't really impact us too much here. James, got a couple more minutes before we wrap this one up. Let's take a quick look at the small forward position. At the top is Brandon Ingram. I've been really trying to work myself into getting some Pelicans exposure here because the Thunder's defense has just been atrocious this season. Pretty much everybody is going off. I have Lonzo Ball as the cover of the Fast Break article today. Again, I point guards, especially against OKC, have put up really strong numbers. Ingram himself has been filling up the stat sheet. The ownership's been high on him, but everybody's been really drawn to Zion just for name, I think, value over Ingram. And for the most part, Ingram's been more consistent in production. I like him a lot. 9,400 on FanDuel is very tough to get to on such a 4-game slate with not a lot of available value unless you're deep diving for a Hamidou Diallo or a Royce O'Neal. Not guys that we love, but really the only playable value, I think. Where do you stand on Ingram? Do you think he's a must play on tonight's slate?
I think he's a must play on FanDuel more than he is on DraftKings. But yeah, he's elite nonetheless. We've already almost seen a triple double out of him. We've seen 2 double doubles. It's as good as it gets right now, and we're still getting Brandon Ingram for $8K on DraftKings. It's only a matter of time before he's $9,000 on DraftKings every slate. So take advantage of that price tag.
Yeah, I agree with you. Going down, OG Anunoby, someone that I know that you and I are both high on. Pricing difference again. He's much cheaper over on DraftKings than he is on FanDuel. One of the points I brought out is if you look at his steals and blocks numbers so far this season on DraftKings, on FanDuel specifically, on 2 of the 3 games they've played recently, he's giving you 18 and 15 fantasy points alone just in blocks and steals. So like that type of production is pretty hard to come by from a guy who you're not relying on scoring. If the scoring comes, he goes off for 40. It's just huge.
Exactly what happened last game. Goes off 20 actual and gives us 44 fantasy points.
Yeah, and below them, mid-tier guys, we've talked about, Mikal Bridges and other guys that we like, such as Harrison Barnes in that sub 6K range. Both just solid plays, just guys that you can trust. Bridges is sort of like Anunoby there, where, he gives you rebounding and steals and secondary into shot drops upside. Barnes is just like consistent. He gives you double-digit points. He'll give you 8 rebounds, and maybe he'll chip in with a couple assists and a steal, little block here and there, and he gets it done for you.
Yeah, the assists. He had like 5 assists in the first quarter the other night, which was wild to see. Mm-hmm. But hey, man, if they're going to run the offense through him a little more, who's to say he doesn't up it up in a little bit in the assist category every night? So I do like White Bread Harry Barnes, and again, more Kings value. He's too cheap, and just I can just keep saying that about all the Kings on this slate.
Pretty much, you can pretty much just keep on saying this about all the Kings. They're all very cheap. Let's go to the power forward position. Julius Randle, right? Just one of our favorite plays of the day.
Mm-hmm. Julius, yeah, and I no problem paying the price. I think there will be a lot of people scared off, but he's gotten for 60 twice in a row. So like, there's really, really strong upside here.
Definitely strong upside. Pascal Siakam on FanDuel is only 7,400. I feel like that's just at that price, even when at times he's been unexciting, you just have to play him.
Yeah, he's going to be one of the highest owned players at that price tag for sure.
Yeah, and DraftKings probably too expensive for you?
DraftKings too expensive, FanDuel too cheap.
FanDuel too cheap. Free duel.
So free duel DraftKings, yep.
We touched upon Christian Wood already, $7,300 on DraftKings. He's 8K on FanDuel as a center. Do you play Wood at 7,300? Is that wary you at all?
In a tournament, to be different, sure, you can. Will I? Probably not, but I don't think a lot of people do. And with everyone back, and if he's starting and still playing 30-plus minutes and still maintaining the type of production, I mean, he could win you a tournament. So tournaments, fine. Cash games, I'm staying away.
How do you feel about Aaron Gordon on today's slate? He had been limited, but if there's a chance where he plays more minutes tonight, maybe something that he goes through.
So he's expected to play more. He was
Right.
expected to play more in the OKC game and then didn't.
It was because
So
I think it was because of the double-digit game, point spread there at the end.
yeah, I don't know. I guess like we skipped over Evan Fournier. I think we got excited with the value. I think like I'd go to
Sure.
Fournier as like a they need scoring. If Gordon actually does play the 28 minutes, it's fine. If you're mentioning Aaron Gordon, I think that is worth noting because you are the anti Aaron
Yeah.
Gordon whisperer.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of his in general, but again, it's a small slate. He's only $6,000 tonight
Right.
over on DraftKings, so I just think there's some potential upside for him there. Um, any other power forwards? I mean, we have Bojan, Jay Crowder, anything like that. Do you care? Do you like?
Boyan on FanDuel is under 5K. That's appealing. And Jay Crowder made every shot he took the other day, and if that continues, I mean, sure. He only played 20 minutes and gave us 21 actual points. So I do think there's some value with Jay Crowder. He's clearly sitting on the 3-point line, just waiting for Chris Paul to pass him the ball. But if the shot falls, he can be really good, like we saw the other night. So I think there's some like correlation if you want to play like Chris Paul and Jay Crowder stack, that's fine. But I don't have like a strong desire to play Jay Crowder. I guess like in tournaments maybe throw in Marvin Bagley, but like the minutes just are just completely unsafe.
Okay. At the center spot, Joel Embiid is a top price guy on DraftKings again, not on the FanDuel slate. I know you and I both sort of like the value on this slate at center. I think we're going in that
Yep.
direction, but there's no hate here on Embiid against the Magic. I think he's going to be in a perfectly fine spot. On the flip side, still think Vucevic is nice. Again, if you want to go in that direction, I think there'll be lower ownership there. I like Gobert a lot in all formats. He's definitely more of a cash game play, but a good matchup for him again against Phoenix. We've seen some upside from him in the past. Those are the guys I'm looking to spend up for. If we're looking down at the value, personally, you're a big Richaun Holmes fan tonight.
Yeah, I mean, everyone thought this would be a 1A, 1B with Hassan Whiteside eventually, becoming the 1A, and that's obviously still remains to be seen. But right now, 1A is Richaun Holmes, and we saw him play a season high 32 minutes last time out. We saw him put up a season high in points. 36 fantasy points was a season high. Everything's pointing to Holmes, who's averaging over a fantasy point per minute, as the guy in the middle right now for Sacramento. We've seen an increase in minutes every single game. Like there's really nothing to dislike about Richaun Holmes right now. And plus, again, Houston, worst defensive efficient team in basketball. DeMarcus Cousins is not going to help that by any stretch of the imagination. So, like, no matter how you slice it, Richaun Holmes is in a good spot. We just have to stay out of foul trouble because we know that you, as a Richaun Holmes truther, know that's his detriment, and that's what results in Hassan Whiteside outplaying him. So if he can stay out of foul trouble, I think we're in for a big night out of Richaun Holmes.
Yeah, another guy that's equally as priced as Holmes, and then I'm more on another sort of binky of mine, Mitch Robinson. I like him more on FanDuel. $5,200 to get the block upside. Toronto's been slinging a rotation of Aaron Baines, Chris Boucher, and Alex Len out there. I don't think there's too much trouble for Robinson, but if he starts hacking at like Siakam or something like that, or Lowry when he's driving to the lane, he'll be on the bench quickly. But back-to-back games at 30-plus minutes, we know they're going to play him a lot. And that block upside for just $5,200. I mean, this is a guy we've saw, last year have 6 block games, so just appealing to me at the spend down spot. But James, it is 5:30. Roster lock tonight on DraftKings is 6:30, 7 o'clock over on FanDuel. So plenty of time for more news to break. Of course, they'll be in chat answering any questions that you may have. I believe all content is out. Is the Value Vault?
No, Value Vault will be out shortly.
Value Vault will be out shortly, but starting 5, fast break, playbook, it's all out there now. So read it, ask us questions, get us on Twitter, and good luck tonight.